Alternative versions of history are gaining popularity lately. And this is not related to any new discoveries by scientists, but rather to the complete failure of education on par with the unification of knowledge into a single database of the internet. And although for the majority of the Earth's population, the internet correctly performs its role in zombification, there are still people who ask questions to which historians give funny answers, more like excuses. And among such questions, in particular, who are these Russians? Where did Russia come from? Why did historians not mention it until the 9th century, and so on? Let's tackle this question. If you ask an average historian about who the Russians are, most likely he won't be able to explain anything clearly. He will mumble something about Russians being those who, well, and then there are many options. They live in a certain territory because of the Finno-Ugric, or the conquerors of the Finno-Ugric. Mythical mushrooms, ruotsi, or those who wear clothes with a certain ornament. If you ask the clergy, they will tell you that Russians are just dirty, unwashed pagans. If you ask Europeans, then Russians are slaves, in English, a slave. Do you think something has changed with the advent of the internet? No, those who rewrote history have not gone anywhere. They continue to live among us and subtly manipulate public consciousness, timely infiltrating and even leading the alternativists, thereby directing people to the course they need. Don't you believe? Well, then let's look at the most popular alternative versions of this question. Version 1, Russians are the carriers of the genetic code. Good theory indeed, it explains a lot, although no, it explains nothing. On the contrary, it sows the seeds of racism in souls. Version 2, Russians are Aryans, the ancestors of the greatest civilization, destroyed by other gods, demons, civilizations, evil, mollusks. They need to be underlined. Did they understand anything? How does this version differ from the first one? Yes, essentially, by nothing. The same grains of discord. Version number 3, this is Russian. We'll explain soon, wait. Yes, that's exactly what the third version looks like. Because most of the alternatives are just hyping up on this topic and gathering maximum subscribers. One of the most obvious examples are channels like Cremola and Realization, which, by the way, Realization opened with a video, Who are the Russians? However, if you watch this video unexpectedly, you will realize that nothing is explained there, not even a hint. Have you ever wondered why the word Russian is an adjective? Does the name of any other nation always carry a substantive character? And answers the question, who? Englishman, American, Hungarian, Romanian, Italian, and so on. And only the Russian answers the question, which one? So, maybe Russian is not a nationality at all? What can we learn about the origin of the word Russian? Modern historians cannot give a clear and unequivocal answer. But they have versions, for example, versions about the Finnish tribes of Ruotsi, which translates as rowers. Well, it's also a good version. The tribe of rowers. And no one is bothered by the fact that, logically, the tribe of rowers should live on the shore, regardless of whether it's a river or a sea. It doesn't bother that the territory of Russia is predominantly in the fields and forests. It doesn't bother that the Finns are a very small people, and perhaps only a part of the Russians, but not at all the whole. Ultimately, this reflects the perverse humiliation of Russians, as rowers are essentially slaves. Which, by the way, sounds like slaves in English and seems to resemble Slavs. The only thing that can justify this version is the name of a certain territory by the invaders and robbers. That is, the designation here on these shores you can seize good mushroom slaves all. But to do this with the self-name of the people never, this is a direct humiliation. There is another Iranian version. It concludes that in Arabic languages there is such a word raz or rose, which means light, bright, white. Well, possibly, the ancient Iranians, who are Persians, have never seen a white man in their life. That is, neither Greeks, nor Romans, nor Sarmatians, nor Scythians have seen Alexander of Macedon with their own eyes. That's why they called us Rus as white-skinned. The third version is Byzantine. They say that the Arab traveler of the 9th to 10th century Al-Masudi, in his notes, mentions a tribe, which the Byzantines call Russia, which means red or ruddy. His colleague Ibn Fadlan, who personally saw these Rus, notes their unusual redness. It's unclear whether he meant a sunburn or a sunburnt skin. And what was the actual language the Byzantines used to communicate? The local replies, of course, in Byzantine. What does it exist? It turns out the Byzantine language is a transitional version from ancient Greek to modern Greek, also known as Middle Greek. So let's try to find this word in both modern and Middle Greek languages. With the modern one, it's simple. We type in the words red, rye into the translator and expect to get a completely different spelling and pronunciation, meaning there's nothing in common at all. Let's try with Middle Greek. It's harder here. I couldn't find online translators for this language, but did find a dictionary. And I also didn't find any Russia in it. But I found the word Rus, which refers to some location in the Megaride. Again, nothing to do with red or ruddy. Remember this intriguing detail. So far, scientists appear to be asking us to trust them on their word. As they say in one joke, this is where my luck ran out. But then perhaps the echoes of truth have survived in modern languages? Well, let's take, of course, our favorite English. It calls us. This is more. Why? Do they have poor hearing? Their tongue will twist into a tube when pronouncing the word Russian. No, of course not. Everything is very simple. They read what is written. That is, they read historical books, sources, in which it is written Russian. That is, the root Rus, to which the suffix "ian" is added, indicating belonging to something. And according to the logic of the English language, the word should sound with one S, like Russian. But someone stubbornly added against the rules of the English language a second S, which as a result is read as ash and turns out ration. Are you not tired of this lie yet? Perhaps we should refer to the original sources? I mean Latin. Why exactly Latin? Because all the original sources were written or transcribed originally in 3 canonical languages: Latin, Ancient Arabic, and Ancient Greek. The other sources, if they were written in other languages, are now firmly labeled as Etruscan untranslatable. Cyril and Methodius are here to help you. It was in this language that the Romans, who fought with the Etruscans, spoke. It was in this Latin language that history and science were originally transcribed. It is in this language that scientific names have been given to animals and plants for many centuries. Science also uses specialized terminology. This is the language of medicine and history. Well, if so, then the Latins were the first who simply had to meet face to face with the Russians and give them a name. After all, they went, we go to Google Translator, find Latin, type in Rus, and get that country A sounds like Russ. Probably a mistake. Probably some kind of glitch in the translator. Let's look at another one. Well, for example, in Yandex. Yes, let's try it in Yandex. We get village. Well, these are not specialized translators. Maybe we'll take specifically Latin specialized. It gives us several meanings right away. This is both a village and a countryside and a field. Yes, just like that Russians are the inhabitants of the country, village, villagers, peasants in the field dwellers or field workers. Everyone who lives outside the city, just people, villagers, peasants, all inhabitants of the country or even the planet. The same is said by another word in Latin, rusticus, acousticus, peasant. So Russians are all people. I don't want to get carried away into the deep woods. But isn't this the answer to the question? That's why the word is an adjective specifying it. It can be applied to any nationality, for example, a Russian German or a Russian Bulgarian. Absolutely anyone can turn out to be Russian. This definition of belonging is not to any specific nationality, but rather to an empire, a country, a state. And in our understanding, it is most likely belonging to all the inhabitants of the earth. That is, any person is Russian. So why is such a simple, obvious, and logical fact so stubbornly ignored by scholars? Or they don't notice it? Well, of course they notice, and they know about it beautifully. That's why they so diligently lead us astray. Because such a simple answer, that Russians are all this, absolutely all people, can draw very dangerous conclusions behind it. For example, if there are people, then there are also non-people. Well, it's logical. Or such an interesting conclusion, if Rus is read in English according to the rules of the English language, then possibly another reading Raz. And from this point of view, racism looks completely different because Britain is the birthplace of racism, and it becomes more understandable why Hitler, a fervent racist, went to war not with the Republic of Congo, but with Russia. I don't know whether it's true or made up. The source is quite dubious, but legends go around that once Emperor Nicholas I at a court ball asked Marquis of Chold-Augustin, who at that moment, by the way, had taken refuge in Russia from the French Revolution. Marquis, what do you think? Are there many Russians in this hall? Everyone except me and the foreign ambassadors, Your Majesty, replied the Marquis. You are mistaken. That's my close Pole, that German over there. There stand two generals, not peasants, that courtly Tatar, that Finn, and there's a baptized Jew. But then where are the Russians, Marcus asked. And here they all are together. They are the Russians. Whether it's true or a myth, I don't know, but in any case, this legend hits the mark. Who, if not the emperor, should know the true state of affairs? He said literally all people in plain text.